Hello, everyone. This is Phil Johnson, and joining me today is Sherry Welsh of SherryWelsh.com. Sherry is a leadership coach who works with professionals, both individuals privately, and she also works with groups within companies. You can get a copy of Sherry's book, Slowing Down: Unexpected Ways to Thrive as a Female Leader. You can get that from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or other book retailers. And Sherry, thanks so much for joining us today.
It's great to be here, Phil. Thanks.
Sherry, we mentioned last time you're a certified professional coach, and you did your training with the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching, or IPEC, which teaches energy leadership. And last time you introduced us to the principle, the methodology of energy leadership, and how you use that in your coaching practice. And I was wondering, for today's podcast, can you give us a little bit of a recap of what we talked about last time?
Sure. As we reviewed with Albert Einstein's theory of energy, right, that it can't be destroyed or created, only transformed from one type to another. That's exactly what goes on in everybody's life throughout the day, that they're moving in different parts of the spectrum of catabolic and anabolic energy. Catabolic being very draining and exhausting, and anabolic being very uplifting and building and creative energy, inspiring energy. And so things happen in everybody's life, and as they interact with others, as they show up to do a job, or to have a conversation with someone, or to spend time with someone, different elements come into play that have us experience either catabolic energy or anabolic energy. And it moves back and forth throughout the engagement, throughout the task, throughout the activity. And what we touched on briefly last time was the 7 levels that I learned at IPEC, that I love to use in the coaching work I do with clients, and for myself, to really understand where are these 7 levels showing up in my life, and understanding when they're catabolic and when they're anabolic, and how do I do more to and say the more things that inspire me, that get me more in the anabolic range throughout the day. So that's what we're going to talk about more today, is really breaking down those ranges between catabolic and anabolic, and how they show up in our world, and how we can consciously choose to engage with people and in activities that inspire us more so than drain us.
Right. And we talked about last time how this idea of an energy continuum from catabolic to anabolic, and these 7 levels of energy along the way, give you a kind of a shorthand that you can use in your coaching sessions, and that your clients can use in their daily life in order to recognize where they are along that continuum and learn how to shift out of the more catabolic negative forms of energy to the more anabolic positive forms of energy. And if anyone would like to follow along, there's a really helpful chart on your website that lists these 7 levels that we're going to be starting to get into today. And our plan is to cover these in 3 podcasts. So we'll begin today with levels 1 and 2. But could you run through for us the 7 levels and just kind of give us an intro?
Sure. So the 7 levels, what I like to refer to them as the 7 levels of leadership, and they are the breakdown of the different energy types that occur in our everyday interactions and engagements with others and our activities. So the lowest level of energy, the strongly catabolic level, is called victim energy, and that's level 1. And at that level, we really feel helpless. We feel like there's nothing we can do to about the situation to change it, or whatever the person is saying. We feel there's nothing we can say in response. So level 1 is a very helpless feeling. Level 2 is fighter energy, and at fighter we staunchly believe that we're right, and we want to defend it, and we want to prove to the other person they're wrong. So that can be a very effective way of interacting when you're very passionate about defending a belief that you have or direction you're headed in. But over time, it's very draining and can be forceful and can turn people off. So fighter energy is level 2. Level 3, the next one up, has a bit more anabolic energy to it. And so it's where logic kicks in. It's called the rationalizer. It's where you really rationalize other people's behavior because, there's a little judgment, they just don't know any better, but you're not going to let them stop you. You're not going to let them get in the way of moving towards your goal. So that's what the rationalizer does. And it also tolerates other people's behavior, but keeps moving forward. So it's more productive than the other 2 levels, 1 and 2. So at level 3, it's very useful in the company, in planning, in problem solving, in getting things done. But again, it's not 100% anabolic yet. So it still has a very catabolic draining feature to it on the continuum that we talked about.
Yeah.
The next one up, level 4, is a caregiver level. And at that level, you want to help. You want to be of service to others. You want to feel good about making things easier for others. So caregiver energy we all have, by the way, all 7 levels fluctuating through us. And level 4 feels good. It feels good to help others. So it's more anabolic, but it's something you got to watch not to drain yourself because you give, and don't take care of yourself. And you're not giving to yourself first and foremost. So we'll talk more about that when we get in more depth with level 4. Level 5 is what I really encourage all of my clients to strive to hang out in the most throughout the day. That's the partner energy. That's really true partnership, not just a superficial win-win like you hear about, but true partnership. Like we both get this. We both get a benefit from what we're going to do here. That it makes sense for both of us, and we both benefit as a result of this agreement or doing this work together or whatever it might be. So level 5 energy is really, really valuable and much more anabolic than level 3. Level 3, you get things done, but at level 5, you get things done together, and it makes sense for everyone. Everyone's all in. So it's really useful energy. Level 6 taps into higher intuition, all-knowing, your inner wisdom. It's a very high creative space to be in level 6. It's much lighter than the other levels. You really feel like you don't get any drain. You could go on and on, sort of like the Energizer Bunny, right? That just keeps going. At level 6, it's beautiful space to be in. It's incredibly empowering. It's incredibly inspiring. The thing to caution with level 6, though, you may seem disconnected to others because you're just, you're so far out of reach from them because you just don't get the emotional drama of it. You're so removed from that you just don't see anything wrong with what's going on. You only see the benefit of what's happening, that it's useful, that it's valuable, that it's worthwhile. So at level 6, it's a beautiful space to be in. But when you're surrounded with people that are at lower levels, you're going to appear disconnected. So it's just to notice that. Doesn't mean you need to do anything different. But it's where people kind of struggle with level 6 and level 7 energy. It seems like it's kind of way out there. It's not. We all have level 6 and 7 as well. It's just a different place to be, a different space. So level 7, then, the ultimate energy, is really where pure passion lives. It's where non-judgment, unconditional love resides. I tell my clients a lot of times, you think, okay, it's hard to live in level 7 energy in our world. It's where Jesus and Buddha and Muhammad may live. But it's hard in our society to live in level 7. But we all have it. We can tap in there. We can create more space to access it. It's a beautiful place to be. It's where flow resides, where time stands still. That's level 7 energy. So that's a kind of short summary of the 7 levels of leadership.
Wow, that's great. That's a really good intro, I think. One thing that stood out to me as you were going through each of those levels is, I think you mentioned several times, we all have this. And that's a striking point to me, whether it's down at the helplessness of level 1 or in the pure passion, non-judgmental energy of level 7. We've all got all of these things in us.
Yeah. Yeah, and what happens is we shift, just like I was talking about Einstein, right? The energy transforms, it shifts from one type to another. And it can happen in a nanosecond, in an instant. Or you can hang out in one of those levels for a period of days, right? So what's going to happen is there's beliefs or thoughts that come in that a meaning gets attached to, and it takes you to one of those levels based on whatever meaning you're attaching to it.
Yeah.
So that's how you can start to get more aware and conscious and choose, okay, what's happening for me right now? Where am I going with this? Am I feeling empowered with this situation, or am I feeling like I'm pretty helpless? And when you start to notice, and that's what I love doing the work together with clients, is they start to notice, okay, hey Sherry, I'm in level 1 right now, I don't see any way out. All right, let's talk about that. Let's hang out there for a minute and see, what's going on and what would be possible. What is another way of looking at it? How true is it really that you're totally helpless here? And so that, so I won't make it wrong to be there. It's not bad to be there. It's just gaining acceptance of all the 7 levels and an understanding of them to know more quickly when I'm in these lower levels how unproductive it is and how I want to choose to move out of it.
Mm-hmm. So can you take us to levels 1 and 2? You wanted to cover levels 1 and 2 together. Maybe you can get into them in a little bit more detail for us and talk about why they go together.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So what happens in daily life is we have a set of operating principles. Each one of us has a unique set of operating principles, which I call core values. And we'll talk about core values, I know, at another time. But core values are kind of like your inner compass of what's important to you, what's a deal breaker for you in life. And so some of those core values, for example, could be integrity or accomplishment or family or connection with others or respect, right? So different things that are important for you as like ultimate deal breakers. When any of those core values are threatened in some way, based on what someone says to you or what someone does or what you observe other people doing, and so it affects one of those core values, you're going to feel threatened in some way and you're going to want to fight to defend yourself and protect those values, or you're going to shut down, you're going to retreat and pull back to protect yourself.
So level 1 and level 2, these are our response to a threat.
Correct. So they're the exactly default levels we all go to, one or two as a tendency, and sometimes we'll have one more so than the other. But all of us have level 1 and 2 energy under stress. And when I say under stress, I normally am meaning under threat. Mm-hmm. Under some form of threat, and it doesn't always mean a physical threat. It could be, but usually it's a mental threat. That something has happened and I've now attached a meaning to that event as, this is not good. And I want to protect myself.
Yeah.
And so that's the tendency is either going to be a retreat and protect myself tendency, or a stand up and scream and fight tendency. Mm-hmm. Could be either of those.
Now, on the chart on your website, level 1 says victim, and I don't know, when I see victim, I think, oh, that's not me. Mm-hmm. Can you maybe describe a scenario where someone might go into victim energy and kind of broaden that out to show how it applies to all of us?
Sure. Yeah, so I know victim is a strong word, and I love the response you get when you hear the word. Many times when I bring this into the work I do with clients, and I say, okay, level 1s are victim energy, and they're like, oh yeah, I know lots of people that are victims. I have a lot of those in my office, or whatever they want to say. And so it's easy to see someone else as a victim, and it's hard to own that for ourselves. So the word victim really means, in this context of leadership and energy leadership specifically, is that you're feeling helpless in that moment to do anything about it. So as a leader, for the most part, as a leader in life, whether it's in your personal life or your professional life, you're wanting to feel in control of the situation. That you can keep moving it forward, that you can move people in the direction you want to move them in. And when you're in your level 1 victim energy, you're not feeling like you have that ability. Mm-hmm. So a simple example would be whenever you hear yourself say, well, I'm waiting on this person to give me this information before I can do anything. Or I can't approve that expense. I don't have the authority, right? Those are 2 very simple ones that show up in office. Right there, that is a level 1 statement. That I'm waiting on someone else. There's nothing I can do. It's out of my control. I have no power.
Right. Wow.
In this situation. Yeah. The other one, as far as having no authority, clearly there's hierarchy in companies, and there's certain levels of governance of spending and cadence in how to manage money, etc. But when that statement comes out of your mouth, I can't approve this, I don't have the authority, in that instant, in that moment, you're feeling helpless to give that person that requested your approval the approval, right?
Yeah.
Because you feel powerless to do it, because you don't have you believe you don't have the authority.
Yeah. Okay. That's helpful. That, I feel like that brings level 1 a lot closer to home. Because the things you're mentioning, whether a feeling of helplessness or even just those simple statements like I can't approve that, or I think a lot more of us can relate to that. Now, is there any positive value to level 1?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are advantages and disadvantages to all the levels. So I'm glad you brought that up. With the exception of level 7, there's really not a disadvantage. But with level 1, the advantage of level 1 is that you're pulling back to retreat and protect yourself from whatever perceived threat is at you there. And you're going to give yourself a minute to regroup. That's the advantage of it. It's a protection to pull away from whatever's going on. To regroup. Okay. Now, the disadvantage is when you're pulling away, you're not engaging, you're not taking action, you're not moving anything forward, so you're standing still, right? And so the question is, how long do you want to stand still versus move forward? Right. How long do you want to feel helpless? How long do you want to feel that there's nothing you can do about it? Because in my experience, and I know from my own life, that there's always something I can do, something I can ask for, some action I can take. But in that moment, I'm not seeing it.
Right.
I just don't see any options. And that's what happens. And at the chart, we're talking about the reference chart we have of the 7 levels, the triangle chart. You can see at the bottom, when you're down in level 1 energy, you really you don't see any options. In that moment. Right? And again, it depends how long you're there. So it's just a very deflated feeling.
Yeah. So it's not a place to hang out. But
Not a desired place to hang out.
Right. But it can be useful briefly if you need to regroup.
Right. Yeah, and you can see that. I have a lot of clients say, well, I just don't like to fight. I'm just going to walk away. Mm-hmm. Well, in a little bit, that's a little level 2. Just choosing to walk away to avoid the confrontation is one thing when it's a conscious choice. But level 1 energy is really when you're just pulling back, and someone is saying something to you and you're not responding. Mm-hmm. So you're just taking it. And so it's kind of like that. That's the level 1 interchange with the level 2 person in that moment.
Yeah. Now, can you talk for us a little bit about fighter energy, level 2? Maybe give us a scenario where I want to respond by defending what I've done, justifying myself, and maybe talk about how that can be a problem or how that can be useful also.
Yeah, definitely. So level 2 fighter energy is really about control, and it's about being right. So that can be very useful when someone has said something to you that is critical or has questioned your integrity or has told you whatever you just did is wrong. The first response can be, no, I didn't. This is why I did it. I'm right. You're wrong. Mm-hmm. You don't know what I know. Let me tell you what's right. So it's all about defending to prove that the other one's wrong and that you're right. Now, we do that for a lot of reasons, right? So if, for example, your boss is criticizing you and saying, well, you didn't do this task correctly, or your numbers are wrong that you put in the report. That's something, your job, the thought can be, my job's on the line. He's questioning my ability by saying I'm wrong. That's a problem. I want to make sure he knows I know what I'm doing. So then you go into your fighter mode and you say, well, no, wait a minute. This is where I got the information. This is how, and then you start to blame, right? You point to others, you start blaming. That's fighter as well. Mm-hmm. And so it comes in, but the reason you're doing it is to defend your credibility, the work you did, your whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. And so it's understandable that you go to that level 2 to fight, because it's important to you.
Right.
To make sure that your boss sees you know what you're doing. That's where it's useful in that instant. There's ways, and this is what I do when I work with clients, there's ways to shift out of that level 2 more quickly so that you get into a more appropriate professional response.
Right.
That's more productive, right? And keeps the relationship intact. Instead of getting into, now you've pulled your level 3 boss who was just giving feedback that was very logical in his mind. So he was at his level 3. And he could have even been at another level, but he's coming down now to level 2 to fight with you because he wants to win. He wants to show, wait a minute, I know I'm right, you're wrong. And now you have 2 people at level 2 going at it.
But that initial response of realizing I want to fight about this, I need to defend myself, that it seems like that could be useful to let us know when something's important to us.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's how it works, right? That as you start to gain more awareness and take more ownership of where you are in these 7 levels on the continuum, you start to see when I'm in this space, what's going on for me. I'm feeling really passionate about this, and it's important to me that they see I know what I'm talking about, that I'm right. Okay? So when as you evolve and develop in your consciousness and your awareness of, who am I being in this moment as a leader in my life, you start to recognize, okay, I'm at level 2, and it's an initial response. It doesn't feel good. because that's not where, we're designed to hang out. And you're going to notice it more rapidly. So yeah, you're still going to go there as a natural default tendency because of our human construction. There's a threat, we fight.
Mm-hmm.
Or there's a threat, I retreat. One of the two. Excuse me. So our human tendency is always going to go there. But what happens is when you get more aware and conscious and personally responsible for who you're being in any given moment, you start to recognize it sooner, and you shift out of either level 1 or level 2 more quickly into one of the more productive upper levels.
Great. We're just about out of time. I feel like that's a really good conclusion to our discussion of levels 1 and 2, that the usefulness of energy leadership and these 7 levels is helping us to recognize where we are, have that awareness, take ownership of where we are, and learn how to shift into something more positive.
Exactly. Yeah. And I know we'll get to those more productive levels in the next podcast. The thing that I want people to remember, and I remind myself on an ongoing basis, that it's okay to be at these levels, these lower levels. It's human, it's natural, it's normal. There's reasons to protect yourself and defend. So the idea is not to beat yourself up when you go down to these lower levels, because it's easy to do. And it's easy to be very self-critical. Oh, I shouldn't, I know better. I shouldn't be at my level 1 or level 2. It's to know you're going to go there, and it's okay. And what I do when I work with clients is really help them get the skills and develop the awareness to move out of those levels sooner, so they don't have to hang out there any longer than necessary.
Yeah. Sherry, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Phil. I enjoyed it.
And thank you all for joining us as well. I hope you enjoyed this discussion of levels 1 and 2. Keep an eye out for our next couple of podcasts in which we'll cover the rest of these 7 levels of energy. The next one will be on levels 3 and 4, the rationalizer and the caregiver, and then we'll move on to 5, 6, and 7.